full disclosure is always the way to go. The one thing that you cannot fight off with immigration is you lying to them. So I've seen people get denied for traffic tickets because they just didn't put them. So always pull your driving record. I personally right now would not advise doing anything immigration related without an attorney. It's an interesting world right now in immigration, and it's gradually getting tougher.
Born and raised in the motherland, chasing a better life, story of an immigrant. Concrete pastures.
Hello, family. Welcome back to Concrete Pastures. I'm Nancy Mulemwa-Sisi. Oh my God, I'm still hungover on our nomination for the African Podcast and Voice Awards, the APV Awards. If you haven't heard, we've been nominated. Thank you for everybody who keeps voting and sharing the link. The link is in the show notes of each and every episode that we have from the moment we were nominated, and also on our social media platforms. So if you haven't voted already, show us some support by voting. It's super easy. It takes less than a minute. We are in the category of Diasporian Podcast of the Year. Oh, on today's podcast, I am so excited. This has been a long time coming. When I first got on this journey, I really wanted to bring something that was going to educate and inform, aside from us, celebrating our journeys, but I also want to bring individuals that are experts in their professions that can educate us in different areas. So today I actually have an amazing African, an amazing fellow African. I am so excited to bring her on because she is an expert in her field. She's an immigration lawyer. We can all relate to this. For my US people, we know how much just the word immigration, when you start to go through the immigration process, how so much stress comes on just right away. I still have, trauma from that. But all in all, we're creating a mini series to different topics that matter in the immigration space. So today we're going to be talking in regards to green cards, citizenship, appeals, and asylum seeking. So without further ado, our guest name is Deborah Kimbuta, right, Deborah?
Yes, Kimbuta.
Oh,
You got
Kimbuta.
it.
She is an attorney, like I mentioned, with the State Bar of Georgia and the owner of D Kimbuta Law Firm, which stateside focuses on immigration and some business consulting. She specializes in the USCIS filings pertaining to green cards, asylum, appeals, and citizenship. Deborah is currently in the midst of establishing a second, more business-oriented branch of firm overseas, and currently works in the consulting companies interested in investing in natural resources on the African continent. Of course. Welcome, sister. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm well. How are you?
I am so good. I'm so grateful I know you're busy. We've been trying to do this for a while now. You're traveling.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be in the US. I was expecting you to be in this heat with me. There's a heat wave. Okay. So before we get into the nitty gritty, and our listeners, our viewers to get to know you a little bit.
Okay.
I know you are my fellow immigrant. You, from what I saw, you migrated from Congo, DR to France, and then France to the US.
Yes, exactly.
So most of your journey is in the US?
Majority of my journey is in US, yes. I've been in the US for 23 years.
Oh, wow.
So
how was it growing up, I guess, a little bit in France and also compared to the US? How is that dynamic?
I always say the difference between the two places, and ironically, it goes back to immigration. In France, when you're born in France, or when you're a Black person in France, you're an African that lives in France, so you can trace your origins. Whereas in America, we have Black Americans whose origins are traced back to America for as far as they can reach out. So what ended up happening is I left France and came here and thought that I could, hang out with the Black Americans, but they had nothing in common with me because I was African and they were Black American. And then the white population was white American, and then there's white French, and there's a difference. So it was hard to pivot at 9, to have like a little identity crisis of like, okay, so what am I doing here? Because the way Black people act in France is a little bit more oriented towards our African origins. And then you have African American culture that's completely different. Yeah. So it was a bit of an identity crisis. It was a bit of a shift, and it took me a little while and a little bit of acting up in school to figure it out. But in the end, I figured it out. So it's immigration. It shows you how deep immigration runs, even in basic things like just switching countries around.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. Because sometimes we think coming to America as Black Africans, we're like, oh, we're just going to fit in. It's very hard to actually even fit in because our cultures are completely different.
Exactly.
But wow, really well said. But I'm gonna fast forward to where you are. What got you into becoming an immigration lawyer?
I always say this before I ever talk about my immigration journey. I never wanted to be an immigration attorney. That was never what I wanted to do, only because I'm not the type of person that likes to be in people's business. And with immigration, I'm in your household. I know your private business. And so it wasn't something that I saw myself doing. But what ended up happening is once I graduated from law school, I knew I wanted to work with something that had to do with Africa. I went back to Congo and worked for a year because I wasn't familiar with Congo. So I worked there for a year up until the end of 2019. And then I was like, okay, I got enough experience. Let me come back to America and try to get now stateside experience. And then COVID hit.
What type of work were you doing in Congo?
I was doing legal advising for a large flour and maize-based company, which is one of our greatest imports.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah, so it was nothing that had to do with immigration. It was more contract-based and structuring their legal department. Once I got back, COVID hit in March, and without putting any political opinion on it, the last administration was a bit harsh and kind of weaponized COVID with immigration. So borders or immigration, like I like to say, immigration was effectively shut down for like a year because of COVID. They were able to implement a lot of executive orders. And then I started noticing that the news was not explaining the executive orders correctly. And so what was then happening is people were either applying less or they were being discouraged and not getting the right amount of information. So I started getting on Facebook and just posting things. And then it was like one client after the other started coming to the point where I had to protect myself and open a firm. And now I'm just in love with it.
Oh, nice. So you already gotten into it. So a lot of us, I mean, the dream is once you are an immigrant in the US, I just want to stress that Deborah is a lawyer here in America, and she's only talking about immigration here in the US of A. Unfortunately, we don't have for everybody. So this is just for anybody who's contemplating if you come into the US of A, and just also you're interested to know on how it actually goes step by step in terms of inquiring certain documents to be legal, to stay in America, to be able to work. This is the show for you. So we'll start with the green card. We all want that green card to be able to travel, to be able to go visit our family, and but how does someone start applying for a green card? Or what is the green card first? We'll start with that, just for anybody who's outside doesn't know.
So your green card or your lawful permanent residency, so you'll see LPR written some places, is essentially the government stating that although you may be citizen of another country, your permanent place of residence is the United States. So you can still, for example, I'm Congolese of origin. I'm from DRC, and so I could have a citizenship in DRC, but my main place of residence is in America. It doesn't give you rights to an American passport or anything, but you do have, your basics, your social security and everything. You're allowed to do certain things. You have access to certain stateside aid, but it's literally the step down from citizenship. So that's going to be your right to remain.
Okay. How does someone go about applying for the green card?
So you always have to have an underlying petition, so to speak. So American immigration is, in my opinion, maybe like top 3 toughest countries to migrate to. And I always tell everyone, unfortunately, you can't wake up one good Thursday morning and say, hey, I want to move to America and move here. There's actually no legal parameter that does that at all. However, there are different steps that you can apply through. So you have, for a lot of countries, there are various ways and applications, but the main ones that typically people will qualify for is you always have your employment visas, applying for a job in America, and that job will sponsor you. And there's various different categories. So some of them will actually sponsor you for a temporary work visa that'll allow you to work in America for maybe a year or two, or to fulfill the purpose of your contract. And then some of them can actually sponsor you for a green card. So you have to make sure you're aware of what category you're being sponsored for. You of course have a family petition. So US citizens and green card family members can apply for you. US citizens can apply, and there's categories that'll break down a little, it's a little bit more broken down. So US citizens can immediately apply for their underage children, which underage in immigration is under 21. So they're underage, unmarried children. US citizen can apply for immediately their spouses and then their parents. So that's what you're going to call an immediate family member category. There's always a green card available for those members of the family. As far as green card holders, they can apply for their underage children and their spouses. There's always a green card available for them. And then after that, they can apply for, US citizens can apply for their married children, and then their children that are over the age of 21. And their brothers and sisters. But the brother and sister category, I always say, is a lost category. It takes about, I know Congo is about 13 years behind. So yeah, they keep trying to get rid of that category. I don't know why it's still there, but it's 13 years behind. But the last 3 categories that I just listed, there's a specific amount of visas that are available for those categories. Once those categories run out, you're going to have to wait until there's more visa availability. So that's why they take a little bit longer. On the permanent resident side or the green card holder side, they can only apply for their unmarried children over the age of 21. And they have to wait until a visa is available. So those are going to be your family-based petitions. And then just a slight mention, it would be with the spouses. For a US citizen, you can also apply for your fiance, which I always give the reference of like 90-day fiance. That's what that fiance visa is.
Yeah. For those people who've
That's
seen the show, I mean, I've been told to watch the show. I'm like, I don't know.
I've never seen it. I shamefully have never seen it, but I always use it as a reference. But the fiance visa is actually typically quicker than applying for your spouse. I always use the example of when you're doing a fiance visa, it's a temporary visa or a non-immigrant visa, meaning you're not coming here to move here. You're coming here to fulfill a purpose. And that purpose with the fiance visa is you're coming here to get married within those 90 days. Well, once you get married within those 90 days, you now qualify to be petitioned for as a spouse. And now you can get your green card. So it's a pathway to the green card with like a non-immigrant visa that's easier to get because it's like a visitor's visa. When you're applying for your spouse, they have to make room for your spouse. So they have to give them a social, they have to do background checks, they have to do all of that good stuff. So that makes it a little bit longer. But those will be—
You just answered one of my questions. With the 90-day visa, like they are able to get like social security and the work permit, right?
After they begin the application for the green card. So basically, anytime someone comes to me and asks me, do we need to get married before I apply? or can I just do a fiance petition? I always tell them it depends on you. Do you want to hurry up and get your significant other in the United States and then you guys figure out the rest? Or do you want to make sure once they get out and get in the United States, they can work? Because if you do a petition for your spouse, they have a green card, they're immediately available to the job market. Because once they come in, they're coming in as a green card holder. But if you do the fiance visa, they're coming in on, remember, a non-immigrant visa. So it's a temporary visa and they have to fulfill the purpose of that visa, which is they have to get married. Well, once they're married, then it's just like a regular application. Once they apply for your husband or your wife applies for you, then you can get the temporary work permit and all of that comes with it.
Understood. I know when I first got my green card, there's like was it 2 years? I think a 2-year one. Is this still the same process that you get 2 years? And what other years do they have?
So basically with the 2-year requirement, I've only had like 2 clients bypass that, but that 2-year requirement is typically if you've been married less than 2 years, which is probably before you applied, you were married less than 2 years.
Hold on.
Yeah, they typically
I'll correct myself. It was 10 years. They gave me a 10 year. I skipped the 2-year because I think the time that we applied. Yes, you're right. Because I'm like, wait, no, it's never 2 years, 10 years. Because I remember I only had one green card.
Married, yeah. So basically, if you've been married for less than 2 years, then they basically approve you for that 2-year green card. It's kind of like a fraud proof kind of deal, making sure that you guys stay together. Then you have to apply for something else that's called removal of conditions on your green card because you're a conditional resident. We're watching you, making sure that you didn't fraudulently apply for your green card. 2 years later, you still convince us that you guys are a valid couple, then we'll approve you for the 10-year green card. So all green cards are approved for 10 years. After 10 years, you renew them. People typically don't make it to 10 years because by 3 years or 5 years, they're applying for their citizenship. So after the 10 year, if you want to stay a resident, some people don't want to lose their other citizenship. For example, Congo only has 1 citizenship. So the moment I became American, I lost my citizenship, my Congolese citizenship. So some people will want to remain a resident and just keep renewing that 10-year, but it's only 2 and then 10.
Got it. I want to take you back to for citizens that file for their sisters, their brothers, cousins, and why does that take so long? And I mean, some of us want to bring our loved ones here. Why does it take so long? Like, what's the problem? Because let's say some people, like a lot of people from Congo, for instance, they lost their loved ones. There's only maybe they have their sister, their cousins. You want to bring them on, and they don't have their parents. Because like you said, the parents get the visas. They always have a visa for your parents and your children and your spouse. But what's going on with our siblings?
The thing is, honestly, it's one of those things that, and this is what I always tell my clients, immigration is not logical because that category of the parents and the kids and the spouse is actually called an immediate family. It's like the immediate relative family. But when we talk about our immediate relatives, we typically talk about our brothers and sisters and our parents, and that's the regular language. But immigration doesn't qualify that. It's a category that they've been trying to get rid of. At this point, it's kind of like a neglected category. It's not a right now category, and there's no logical explanation. I do want to mention though that you cannot apply for your cousin. And you can't apply for your nieces and nephews. It's really just parents, kids, and spouses.
So is there a term you can use if you want to adopt, let's say, God forbid someone, your sister lost, passed and you want to adopt their children, let's say. Is there a term that could be used instead of like?
Yeah, so immigration is actually fairly open with adoptions. However, adoption is very murky because you have, when it's an international adoption, it goes beyond just American law. We're going into international adoption rules. So we have the Hague countries, we have non-Hague countries, which are conventions that have been signed by, and I always remind people is, if you come from a country like Congo, and you become American, you are no longer Congolese. So when you are adopting your Congolese niece or nephew, it is an international adoption. It is an American person adopting a Congolese child. The rules for adoption are, first of all, the child has to be under 16, not 16 and under the age of 16, in order to be able to benefit from your to get immigration benefits, which means you could adopt a child at the age of 17, you could list them as a child in your paperwork, but they will not be able to migrate as your child because you had to have adopted them under the age of 16.
Being an immigrant can be hard. Having been away from my home country for over 20 years has allowed me to experience these hardships firsthand. Throughout my journey, I've had a lot of challenges that were hard to bear. Juggling adjustment to a new country, obtaining my immigration papers, getting married, having children, establishing my career, and finding time for myself. Even though I've always had faith, I also relied on therapy, which gave me the tools to cope with the issues life brought me. My fellow dreamers, let's remove the stigma around therapy and normalize seeking help with today's sponsor, BetterHelp. BetterHelp offers licensed therapists who are trained to listen and help you. Go to betterhelp.com/concrete pastures for 10% off your first month of therapy with BetterHelp and get matched with a therapist who will listen and help in as little as 48 hours.
I will be honest with you, I try to stay away from adoptions unless they've already been actualized and all we're doing is proving to the United States that it's a valid adoption. It's expensive, it's time consuming, and it's just, I can't say it's not worth it because of course we want to take care of our family members, but I feel uncomfortable asking the amount of money it requires to balance out my hours and put in the accurate amount of work. So it's adoptions are a bit murky, but you can if you've already adopted the child and it's been a while, all you're going to have to do is prove that it was a valid adoption. Stepkids can be petitioned for. There's room for that, and it's a recognized relationship.
Wow. How long is the process to when, let's say I apply today for my green card? What is the process like? Like how long does it take?
So you guys are going to hate this answer. I have taken the stance that I do not answer how long questions anymore. And the reason why is
but taking away COVID portion.
Well, what's actually insane is it was going faster during COVID. Right now, we're having people that are waiting for a year to renew their work permits. Renew, not just apply, renew. And there's such a strong backlog that when you renew your work permit, you have the receipt notice that tells you, hey, we got your that receipt notice now serves as an automatic extension for 540 something days to keep your work permit valid because people were losing their jobs. So that's how far back.
I wish that happened for me in 2009 because I lost my job for that.
Really?
Yes, I wish that happened because my boss actually tried to hold my job for like a month for me, and it took a year to get the work permit. And by the time it was time to even get the work permit, I just got the green card.
Exactly. I've had a lot of clients do that where we're either getting the work permit at the same time as the green card, or we're getting the green card and then we get an approval for the work permit. We're like, oh, thanks. Yeah, but I use the example of gave us a confirmation that they received it in June. He did his fingerprint in July, and then he got his citizenship in August. But then I have a client that's going on 1.5 years waiting for his citizenship. So it's kind of a toss up with immigration right now. I would say if you're looking at a category, because we do have to break down also the different applications. So if we're talking about what's called an adjustment of status, which means the person that's applying for you is in the United States and you are in the United States, then you can do it, send the entire packet together. Right now, I'm seeing adjustment of status when it's based on like spouses and kids. I'm seeing about 1 year to 1.5 years. And yeah. And then if you're not stateside and the person that's applying for you is stateside, I typically break it down to my clients as a conversation so that they kind of understand where we are in the conversation. And it lays it out a little bit cleaner. But in both cases, you're looking at anywhere to a year and a half, 2 years minimum. However, what I always tell people is that year and a half, 2 years is always going to pass by. It sounds like a lot right now, but COVID was in 2020. That was 3 years ago. So time does fly. You might as well have the application pending while time is flying.
Wow. Oh, goodness. Anything else you want to add on the green card before we wrap it up for the green cards holders and one person?
Something that I am seeing a lot, and we will. I'll keep that for asylum. But yeah, I think for green cards, that's pretty much it. Make sure full disclosure is always the way to go. The one thing that you cannot fight off with immigration is you lying to them. So I've seen people get denied for traffic tickets because they just didn't put them. So always pull your driving record. I personally right now would not advise doing anything immigration related without an attorney. It's an interesting world right now in immigration, and it's gradually getting tougher. But triple checking your work. If you can't afford an attorney, use all of the tools that are out there for you. One tip of the trade is that we Google as well. So you can Google and try to get some kind of parameters, but if you have the means, at least try to get in a consultation with an attorney. There are some, I don't review the cases, but there are some attorneys that do just a simple review. Try to get kind of that legal look before you apply for anything.
Oh, that's very helpful because you don't want to make any mistakes. I was always nervous trying to apply for anything. The whole process, it was with the lawyer. I think only until I got my green card, then my citizenship, I did it on my own. And that's what we're getting into. So from green card, we're getting into the citizenship. How can we get the citizenship of the US of A?
You can get a citizenship two ways. You've either been a green card holder for 5 years, or you're married to a U.S. citizen and you've been married to the U.S. citizen and have had that green card for 3 years, or you're married to the U.S. citizen at the time you're about to apply and you've been a green card holder for 3 years. So there's a minimum 3 years if you're married to a U.S. citizen, 5 years if you just got your green card and you're not married to a citizen. You didn't get it through sponsorship.
How long is the process for this? By the way, I forgot to ask you for the green card. Like, how much is it now? I paid like 1,000 and something to get my green card.
Yeah, so green card is going to be, if you're applying for yourself. So if you don't have like if you don't, well, let's put it like this. If you're applying for a family member, it's 1,760. 535 is going to be for me, the American that's applying for you. And then 1,225 is going to be for you. That's your green card application plus your biometrics to do your fingerprints and everything. If you're applying for somebody that's not in the United States, that first part, that 535 is the only thing that you're going to be applying for at first. And then the second half is going to be done at the embassy overseas. So you're varying anywhere from, and then if it's like a job that's petitioning for you, when it's time for you to put your application forward, it's going to be 1,225 because that's just a green card application. So family member, 1,760. And then that encompasses a free green card and a free access to advanced parole or a travel document, which I don't recommend doing, but it gives you a free work permit and a travel document included in that 1,760, 1,225 if there's nobody applying for you or if it's a company that's applying for you, and then 535 if you're applying for someone that's not in the United States.
Goodness. One more question actually on green card. So when I was getting my green card, because I was just like puzzled, they ask you to go check for tuberculosis and they have you do like blood work. What is the main purpose of all of that? And if I don't know what they were looking for, everything was sealed. I went to the doctor. he took blood, he did tuberculosis test, and
Mhm.
I didn't see my results, nothing. It just went
Oh,
to.
so you can actually ask them for a copy. I always ask for a copy because I had a horror story happen with like one of my clients' forms where it was misinterpreted. And so I always now ask for the doctor can give me a copy. Legally, we can see it. You just cannot unseal the one that's going to the government because they don't want you altering results.
Okay.
But the reason why is that's still under that admissibility category. So in order to come into the United States, you have to be admissible. You have to make sure, we have to make sure that when we let you into the United States, I use that term we loosely, I'm just speaking as though I'm the government,
Yeah.
but when we let you into the United States, we're not harming our people. So if you have an illness that could spread and harm the United States and that the United States has categorized as an inadmissible illness, you're going to actually have to apply for a waiver. And so the United States is going to have to analyze your case, set aside, and see if you qualify for that waiver, if we can figure out a way to get you help so that we're not adding illnesses into the government. So it's more so, it would be the same as, and it's unfortunate to say, but it's put at the same parameter as you have to apply for a waiver if you commit a crime of a certain degree. You have to apply for a waiver if you qualify as a family member of like an organization that's committed crimes overseas or a government overthrow. It's one of those admissibility questions.
Wow. Okay. Understood. Back to citizenship.
And one last thing. So sorry, I just thought about this.
No. Go ahead.
One last thing I was going to say, please don't leave the United States, especially right now, if you don't have a green card. Just stay. Tell your family members you can see them later. I'm recommending that no one leaves the United States unless they have a green card or citizenship. No one at all. So with elections and changing rules, laws is it's gonna be a little murky. And I don't know if everyone remembers when all of a sudden the White House decided that if you didn't have a green card or citizenship, you couldn't enter the United States. We had a lot of people that had pending applications stuck on the outside. So I'm just recommending that you just stay in the United States, let the elections pass, see what the new or continuing government has to offer, and then travel securely.
That's a good tip. Really, really good tip. You should see me run to the immigration in 2016. Like, I need to get my citizenship right now.
Yeah. It's getting tricky. Let me get it out the way.
Yeah. I was like, oh no, let's do this. So when I was getting my citizenship, I had to, so I went to the immigration, asked for the booklet for the 100 questions, and then do the application. So for anybody who's like, they have had their green card for 3 years or 5 years, whatever category that qualifies them, can they do the application, let's say, with someone like you, or they can do that on their own? And what is the purpose of those questions? 100 of them, the whole book.
Yeah.
And they only ask 10.
Yeah, they only ask like 10. Yeah, I think it's 10, and then you have to get like 6 right, I believe.
Oh, I was making sure I got all of them right.
Yeah. Well, you know what, and what's funny, I always tell this to my clients right before their interview to calm them down. Although I was a minor, when I was I a minor? No, I wasn't a minor actually. I was like 20, I think I was like 23. But it was under the application that my mom did. So I wasn't really involved in the process. I actually got like 2 questions wrong. And he just looked at me, he was like, you didn't study, right? And I was like, my mom's gonna kill me. And he was like, okay, it's fine. Let me just ask you another question. Only because I always remind people, it's good and bad, you're dealing with a human being. So it was clear to him that, okay, this is somebody that her mom told her to study and she just decided to be funny, but she's aware of, it's supposed to be testing your patriotism and your knowledge of the country. So if you remember some of the questions, yeah, you gotta love America. If you remember some of the questions on your application, it asked you, Do you understand the Constitution of the United States? Are you willing to bear arms? Are you willing to bear arms for the United States? Are you willing to drop all allegiance and all of these patriotic questions, because that's what America's about, right? We love America, we'll fight for America, long live America. And so it tests your patriotism. They want to be aware. They want to know that you know these questions. Fair warning, I've tested my American friends on these questions and they don't know them.
I know.
So
they don't.
I always tell my clients, like, don't even try to, it's not necessary to understand it. Like, don't go look up Abraham Lincoln's history. Read the question as is and remember that this question means this. Legally, they have to read those exact questions. They cannot reword. So just memorize the questions, get it over with, and then move on.
Yeah, that's what I did. So there are a lot of people that have, a language barrier when they come to the US and they obtain their citizenship. They're trying to get their citizenship. What is the help that they can get? Because if you I think from what I understand, it's all English, that booklet. I haven't seen it in another language, it's just all English. What other help can they get for people who have a language barrier?
And because once so you're going to do your application, of course, you submit, you go do your fingerprints. Some people don't have to do their fingerprints, they just use fingerprints they've had, but you still pay for it. And then after that, you're going to have, if they don't have any questions about your application, you're going to be scheduled for an interview. At that interview, all citizenship applications are the same. On the first part of the interview, the questions are all the same. What they're going to do is they're going to ask you for your name, of course, and you're going to verify your identification. And then they will do the first part, which is the reading test. I believe reading is first. They'll give you a simple sentence. Johnny was riding his bicycle down the street, and you have to say it back to them. They want to make sure that you know basic English principles or basic English modules. And then after that, they're going to give you a sentence. Abraham Lincoln was sitting in the theater, and you have to write it. They will say, write the following sentence. Abraham Lincoln was sitting in the theater. Those are not questions that it's not sentences they get to come up with. It's already pre-written, pre-chosen, and that's always fun.
I'm smiling because when I was...
Is it coming back to you?
No, because I don't remember all of that. It was such an adrenaline rush. I don't remember none of that. The only thing that you can ask me that I remember from my experience
are the questions.
It's the questions and them asking me where I traveled, and they had a whole list of all the places I had been to.
And then once you pass that English portion, that's when they get over to your application and they start asking you. And they actually do go through the entire application with you. They just kind of will skim and generalize certain questions and then go to that list of where you've lived or where you've visited. The reason why they're seeing where you visited is we're not going to give you citizenship if you're only in the United States for 3 days out of the year. So they want to see you're coming and going. Also, people always forget about this. It links to asylum. But if you came into the United States based on asylum, let's say I came in and I was fleeing Congo, and then I win my asylum case, and then a year later I apply for my green card. I get my green card, and the first place I go visit is Congo. You better believe that when you apply for your citizenship, they have every right to deny you based on the assumption that you might have had a fraudulent asylum claim. And it could go as far as them even taking back your green card. So I always recommend, even if the country condition changed, do not go back to a country that you fled from until you get your citizenship.
Got it. Oh. Oh, that's I was wondering because they had a whole list and I forgot one of the places I had been, but thank God it was close to my birthday. And they were like, oh, August 1st. I'm like, August 1st, where did we go? And I remember because I've always traveled for my birthday. But yeah, it was shocking how many, like the lists they had.
Yeah. They have this whole parameter that just, they have, there's that. There's also traffic tickets. I have to go back to traffic tickets because I had someone get denied their citizenship. Yes, a client of mine got denied his citizenship based on he forgot to put a failure to show identification traffic ticket. And they said that it's a lie, that he's lying. So one of the things, yes, yes. So one important thing to talk about with citizenship is good moral character. Basically, they're saying that if you want to be American, all Americans are good, so you have to be good too. So there's a 5-year time span where they watch your behavior. And during that 5 years, if you, for example, stole something, or if you're just continuously getting traffic tickets, even if you're paying them, but you just love to go to traffic court, they can say that you're not of good moral character and use that against you. If it's within that 5-year scope. So anything you did between 2018 and today, they can use against you. Now, where they get very smart is, let's say that you committed, you did this, you were driving crazy or you stole in 2017. They now can't use that under the good moral character reason to deny you. Where they can deny you, though, is if they ask you about it and you give faulty information or you don't disclose it at all. In which case, the flaw that you've now committed for the good moral character is that you lied. And because you lied to an officer, they're going to deny you based on good moral character. So it's kind of like a murky, based on forgetting. And what that's going to cost you is an additional $700 to appeal it. So you make sure you pull your driving record, make sure you really sit and think about everything and disclose everything. I would rather you go talk to an officer and the officer's like, that's not important, rather than the officer asking you questions and you just didn't disclose something.
Guys, the bottom line is you need a lawyer. That's what I'm sitting here. I'm like, what? You have to disclose tickets?
Yes. Yes. Traffic tickets have been, and then also children. I'm working on my second appeal based on someone who forgot to put their kids. Or one appeal was he got in based on diversity visa. And that's the visa that you apply, and then out of pure luck, they kind of pick your name and you're able to come in the United States. So a lot of countries have that. Yeah. So he came in. At the time, he wasn't sure if the child was his, so he didn't put the child on the application. He went and applied for his citizenship, and by that time, he was sure that the child was his, so he put the child on his application. They denied his application and threatened to take away his green card because they said that he didn't disclose the child. Okay. So he came to us for an appeal. And we had to work on that, but it just shows how they are so detail oriented that one little trip up, you have to now explain to them and pay additional money to tell them, well, I didn't know if it was my kid. I would have been lying to you guys if I put him as my child, and he's not my child. Yeah. So we had to make that argument, and thankfully we won the appeal, but he spent more money than he needed to. And that's the reason why getting an attorney in the outset is always better, because you're going to do it by yourself. And then once you get denied, you've lost $765. And then it always costs more for me to fix your mistakes than for me to just apply for you. And that goes with any attorney. So yeah, citizenship is not as easy as it used to be. I always get mad at the older generation because it was so easy for them. It was like one page. I was showing my mom the green card application. She migrated here in '97. I showed her the green card application. Now it's almost, I think it's like 20 pages. When she applied, it was 2.
No, and the older ones, the old green cards, because unfortunately, no expiration date.
It was so sweet back then. Yeah, no, it was, yeah. Now it's so tricky. It's so tricky. The citizenship application, I think it's like 15 pages now, 15, 16 pages.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then that, and then plus studying, the nerves, the stress.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. You spoke about appeal. So our next, we're done with citizenship, right?
Yes, just tell the truth and get an attorney.
Great. Yes, I agree. Definitely agree. So we're gonna jump into appeals. So could you just explain to us what those are? And how can someone apply if they do qualify for appeals?
Yeah, so USCIS, which is the main immigration stateside, USCIS offers broad spectrum 3 types of appeals. I use the word appeal to cover all of them, but realistically, there is what's called an appeal. And that's going to be where you apply for that. You apply for them to review the case. So for a citizenship, it's not really an appeal. You're appealing the case, but you're actually asking for a hearing. And then you're going to go back in front of a brand new officer that's going to analyze your case from a brand new perspective, and that's going to look at the brief that you've provided in order to be able to have your attorney argue for you. Typically in interviews, when you go for your interview with your attorney, we're actually not allowed to speak we're not allowed to speak. We're just there to make sure that the officer is not asking you questions beyond those parameters and making sure that everything is understood. We're analyzing the situation and really preparing in the event we have to appeal. But with an N336 hearing, which is when we're appealing the citizenship, we actually can ask questions back and we can clarify things and we can help you kind of navigate that portion. So that would be N336 is only for citizenship. For green card, you have either a motion to reopen or a motion to reconsider. A motion to reopen is going to be, hey, I want to reopen this case because I think, and I always get the two mixed up, but the motion to reopen, I'm going to go with, I want you guys to reopen this case and look at the facts again because I think that I have new evidence that could help me win the case. The motion to reconsider is you guys might have misapplied the law. And now that I'm thinking, the motion to reconsider is I think you guys misapplied the law. Look at how the law says that I'm allowed to have this green card. So those are going to be your three kind of outsets. There's going to be your appeal. There's going to be your N336, appeal, N336, motion to reopen, motion to reconsider. The good thing is you don't have to memorize all of that. Your denial notice lets you know what you have a right to do. But in all of those cases, you have 30 days to apply. 30 days to either apply, 30 days to apply if you received your notice online. So some people apply online. 33 if you received your notice by mail. And they have to receive it within that time frame. And that's why I always tell people when you get a denial, you don't have time to be sad, especially if you think it's wrongfully gotten. You don't have time to be sad. You need to get an attorney immediately. And know that if you file for the appeal by yourself and they refuse to appeal your case, you're gonna have to start all over. So the first thing you should be doing is going to an attorney and getting that appeal, getting that denial letter read, so if you have grounds for an appeal or not. Because sometimes they really do make a mistake. You just need somebody to argue that for you.
Wow, that's a lot. The next one, I have nothing to add to that one. So the next one is, how much does that cost, by the way? If you already applied, if you are reapplying, do you have to pay again or no?
If you're reapplying or if you're applying for the appeal?
If you're applying for the appeal. If
you're applying for the appeal, I want to say that all of them are $700. I'm gonna go with that. One application is $700. The other one might be like $645, but it's right around that $700 to $645 range.
Gotcha. I know you are from Congo, and there's a lot of asylum seekers from Congo, and rightfully so. How does anyone, probably someone listening to us, maybe in around the world, and they're looking to get an asylum here in the US, how does someone go about it? Or someone who's already here too?
So how you're going to go about it, it's harder from outside of the United States. There's going to have to be a lot of proof for the United States to be able to take you in, bring you stateside, and be able to review your asylum claim. So I always say find a way to get to the border. Asylum is not, I'm not telling you to lie to any US immigration officer, but asylum is one of the only times where when you're coming in, remember, when you're coming in, for example, if you're getting a visitor's visa, and then you enter the United States and you start working, that means that you lied about your intention when you were getting the visitor's visa. But if you get a visitor's visa and then you get to the United States and you do an asylum claim, asylum is one of the only places that will forgive the fact that you lied about your intention because you were fleeing for safety. But once you get here, the most important thing is you have 1 year to apply for asylum from the moment you enter the United States. It doesn't matter if you're in status, out of status, you have 1 year. After that 1 year, you're going to have to apply for a 1-year waiver and explain to them what extenuating circumstance made it to where you couldn't apply for that 1 year. If you do not qualify for that 1-year exception, you're automatically disqualified from asylum. And now your remedy is just going to be dropped down to withholding of removal, which is basically the same as being stuck with just a work permit, and a CAT protection, which is a convention against torture, and it's the same. It's just you're going to be stuck with a work permit, and you're just always going to be renewing that work permit with no pathway to citizenship, unless someone that's American petitions for you. The application is done with USCIS. All of the previous applications that we talked about, you shouldn't apply by yourself. You could apply by yourself and win, but right now situations are tight. You shouldn't apply by yourself. Asylum, you shouldn't even dream of thinking about possibly applying by yourself. You cannot do that. It is not, it's one of those things that used to be so easy back then, because we didn't have social media. You know, countries were communicating, but not in depth. We didn't have immediate access to the internet. So your everyday American attorney or prosecutor wasn't able to look up information. Now they can pull up everything that's going on in Congo and go into detail and try to find, you know, they have social media, they have things that are going to make them go in depth to where you're actually having a conversation with someone that is just as knowledgeable as you. And what will end up happening is they will beat you because they have legal training, and you will get sent back to America, or Africa rather, or wherever you're coming from. So the most important thing to do once you know you're getting an asylum claim is to absolutely go to an attorney immediately. When you're preparing for an asylum claim, proof is the best gift you can give an attorney. Substantial proof is the best gift. So USCIS, actually, people don't know this, they have the jurisdiction to actually approve an asylum application. You don't have to go to court. It's not a requirement. When you go to court is when USCIS says, we don't know. You know, yes, we think that you were validly scared, but we don't know if it's like valid. So USCIS doesn't have the jurisdiction to deport you, but the court does. And so what USCIS will do is they'll send you a referral letter and tell you, go talk to a judge about it. And then if the judge says yes, then you'll get your asylum claim. Majority of the time, people write such loosely written asylum claims that USCIS will automatically refer. But there is a possibility that if your asylum claim is tough enough and strong enough, and then your interview with the asylum officer is strong enough, and there's just no refutable evidence that you're telling the truth, this is factual, you are in fact in danger, USCIS does have the discretion to automatically approve you, the same way they would approve a green card.
Wow.
I talk fast. So
it's a lot of information, and it's great information because it's needed in our community, and this is why we're actually doing this. I've been waiting for this to be downloaded in my system so I can bring someone who's an expert, and you have given us so much to think about and to actually, you know, assess for ourselves. Like, okay, should I go this route? Should I go this route? Should I go this route? Because there are some people who don't have papers at all for the fear or whatever reason that they may have. How much does it cost to just to apply for the asylum?
It's free.
Okay.
Asylum is free. And what I will sneak in with asylum is also something called VAWA. It's the Violence Against Women's Act. That is free as well. And it's not just for women. They just refuse to change that name, but it's not just for women. And just to create a little caveat there, basically what that's created for is for people who are married to US citizens or green card holders and who are being abused or who are being taken advantage of, and they're dangling kind of that, I will petition for you if you do this, or you're not allowed to do this because I'm petitioning for you. And if you don't do this, I won't petition for you. There is a parameter that's there so that you can apply, and that's free. And the cool thing about VAWA is you can do an entire VAWA application with your significant other living in the same house, and they will never know you did it. So typically what my clients will do, yeah. So what my clients will do is there's always, if you look at the application, there's always like your physical address, your mailing address, and then an alternate safe address. My clients will always put the firm as their alternate safe address. So any notice pertaining to your documentation automatically comes to me or automatically goes to whatever trusted family member you have. So the person actually doesn't even know that you're applying for this. So you remain safe throughout the process.
Wow, no, I'm glad you shared that, because there's a lot of domestic violence that's going on in our community, and people are quiet because they're being threatened, and they don't want to lose their sense, because you don't know. You don't know what the person is going to say, and they're being abused. There's so much abuse out there. So wow, I didn't know that was. I learned something new. That is really good.
Yeah.
Wow. No, that's really good. Also, Asylum is free, and VAWA is free as well. And you just have to have a safe address.
Yeah, so you don't have to have a safe address. If you feel like you can handle your mail, but I always recommend with the valid claim that you have a safe address, because the petitioner is automatically going to think you're telling the government I'm a bad person, I might get arrested or something like that, which they won't. But you want to keep yourself as safe as possible. So any of my violent clients, I always tell them, like, don't tell anyone you're doing this. It's safer. You don't know who's going to get mad one day and open up and share it. You don't know who's going to, just keep this for you. And then once you get approved, we can go ahead and move forward.
Nice. I know we didn't talk about this one prior to recording, but just like as an addition, there are a lot of people who've been here and they have become illegal based on their visa expiring and not going back to the country.
So this question always makes me sad, because the answer is they don't have a lot of options besides the options that you gave. So how I typically will handle a client that's gone through that, and even now they've made it tougher, because if you're going to do an asylum claim in Canada, because you used to be able to, hey, okay, I've passed the 1 year in America. America's not going to take my asylum claim. Canada might hear it out. Well, once you touch American soil, they recently, I think in March, Canada and America signed a treaty, basically saying that you have to apply for asylum and the place where you first set feet in get denied, and then you can go apply in Canada. And so you have to apply for asylum in America first, and then you can go to Canada, because some people were just driving through America and just going to Canada. There is one thing I don't recommend. Actually, I'm going to say very vague things about it so that you don't try it by yourself, or because you will get deported if you do it by yourself without an attorney. There's a 10-year green card for a person that has been in the United States for 10 years and has been a good person, a person of good moral character for 10 years. That only works if you haven't been called into court, but it's a defense. That's the thing that sucks about it. You can't just apply for it. You have to be in court, and they're actively trying to deport you, because that's one thing people don't know. If you're in front of a judge, they're actively trying to deport you, or they're trying to take away your green card, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So you have to be in front of the judge to be able to assert that defense. It's just like asserting asylum. And so with that, you do have the right to assert that, but you should never be trying to put yourself in the crosshairs of court without an attorney.
This is based
asylum
on
is always
good morals only. So you're applying, I've been here 10 years and I'm a person of good morals and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I've been here 10 years. I'm a person of good moral character. And there is a green card holder or an American citizen that will suffer extreme hardship if I get deported. And America does not allow you to use kids.
Oh, I was about to ask.
No.
I was about to ask. I'm like, because people come and, you start to have children, even if you're not married, let's say, and people have kids. And who wants to leave their kids?
So the thing that's insane, I was talking to one of my cousins she's an attorney in France. And in France, once that baby is born and has French citizenship, or like if you're married to, or if the baby's father is French, the child has claim to French citizenship and the child can give you French citizenship. Not in America. That child has to be 21 to petition for you.
Wait, the baby can give you French citizenship?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You should see people flying to France.
And then it's going different. Yeah. You have a pathway through your child. America, you do not. That child has to be 21 to be able to petition for you. How you can do kids, I hate using kids, but how you can incorporate your kids is if it's going to be an extreme hardship for your spouse or significant other to take care of all of those kids. So you're not really staying for the kids, you're staying for your spouse because there's all these kids. But if you say like, oh, my kids need their dad, that's not enough, because America's trying to curb the concept of anchor babies, which is people coming, since we have once you're born on American soil, you're American. Well, once you're born in French soil, you're not automatically French. You have to have some attachment to France. So that's how they kind of separate the two. And that's what I was talking about initially, in the difference between African Americans and being Black in France, is being born on the soil does not make the soil yours, but in America, being born on the soil makes the soil yours. And so here, they don't want people flying into America for visits, popping out babies, and all of a sudden they get US citizenship. So that's what they're trying to curb by doing that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great info. I heard about the 10-year green card situation, but I didn't know the details of it. Thank you for explaining that. But how can people get in touch with you out of all of this great info you've been able to share with us? How can people that are in need of these services get in touch with you?
I'm very active for the time being. I'm on pause on Instagram, but I'm very active via DMs. The only thing that I ask is do not send me your private information, because that's not a secure network. But you can book a consultation. I offer a free 10-minute consultation. I rarely keep them at 10 minutes because I talk a lot, but I offer a free 10-minute consultation just so you don't waste your money if I can't help you. And then there's also the immigration consultation, which is $170, and that'll give you 55 minutes, and we'll go over your case and I'll read your documents and everything. All of that information can be found at D Kimbuta Law on Instagram, or you can go to the actual booking website, which is dkimbutalaw.com. As far as emailing and phone calls, and then we'll be able to chat, set up a time, and step-by-step work through things.
Deborah, you've been so informative with on everything. Thank you so much for what you are doing for our
No problem.
And this is needed. I think I have to look up some topics on what else we can talk about outside of these, and how we can add some topics to it. Like whatever you see in your world that is important, and it's important to our community, because we only know surface level type of information. You know more in detail. There's a lot of things that you've mentioned here that I was like, oh wow, I didn't know that.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I think that's the point of it all, right? To go through it and then to be able to give back. So it's I love the fact that you're doing this.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Oh, this has been good. Thank you. Until
no problem. Thank you for having me.
Oh my God.